Is it going to become is personal transportation going to become a subscription service?
It's a great question, and if you guys looked around this convention, you see the word Cox. We are the 4th largest cable provider, and I think there are a lot of analogies between subscribing to your cable. I mean, let's just face it, you pretty much subscribe to most things in life now. You subscribe even to purchasing the phone. You subscribe to content with Netflix, great example. A lot of Prime subscribers in here, and on and on. And we believe in, at Cox, we started this 4 years ago, vehicle subscription. We've got a product called, a business called Flex Drive, which is where you subscribe to your vehicle. So we think about it, you buy, lease, flex. And there's a third category. And this really is a building block to consumer mobility and shared mobility. If you think about automotive retail starting to shift to no longer going through the whole financing process and credit score and everything else, and then the maintenance and service we talked about, you just subscribe like you do Netflix. And so we launched that Flex Drive service 3-4 years ago. I think the market is telling us the consumers want it. Book has launched and a number of other products and services, throughout both in North America, but globally, we're seeing a lot of subscription services. And I think you first subscribe to your car, and then you just subscribe to mobility, and think about it like mobility units or credits, and there's going to be a mix match. So part of the time you actually do need a minivan. Other parts of the time you just need a shared shuttle. So I think we're starting to see these pieces fall into place, and I would say it's not a leap that consumers are ready for it. Consumers have already kind of said, we're fine moving away from ownership and moving to usage. And so I think mobility is right there. So it's a perfect segue, and the moves that GM's making, that Mike's making, and others, and Mercedes. I think the market reaction. First thing we got to solve is what do consumers want, and I think that kind of hits it on the nail head.
Yeah, it seems like the consumers, when it's put out there, Care by Volvo just launched, and is it Smart? What's the one for Mercedes? I'm sorry, Christoph, is it Smart?
Car2Go?
Yeah. So all the car companies are starting to look into this, and it's getting a reaction that would suggest there's room to maneuver there, and that car companies could start to treat it as a subscription versus an ownership model.
Yeah, definitely.
So we're getting toward the last 10 minutes, but I wanted to let the audience ask some questions. So if people in attendance here, if anyone would like to approach one of the microphones, we've got a few set up. Be happy to field some questions for anyone who's got one. That you've got a pretty powerful panel here of knowledge. If you want to get at anything.
One question with regard to traffic efficiency. Do you really think we will improve traffic efficiency? I had the experience with the LA highway last week. It was great. And provided that we have no separate lanes for autonomous vehicles, that we have no dedicated entry points and exit points for autonomous vehicles, do you really think we will improve traffic efficiency and even safety with autonomous vehicles? I'm wondering. Provided we have mixed traffic.
So I guess I'm happy to speak to that. I think absolutely we will improve safety. There's no question in my mind about that. I hope to be able to talk to David in a couple of years with all the data to prove that. I think your point on the traffic efficiency is very valid. Again, as long as most of the vehicles on the road have drivers, I don't know that we'll see a huge increase in traffic efficiency. But that is something, there's still a lot of work to go on between the industry and the experts in traffic and the cities that lay out the infrastructure.
And the improvements on both sides are going to take time.
Yes.
It's not going to happen overnight.
It's going to be a transition phase, and we shouldn't be naive to believe that in 5 or 10 years we'll have all autonomous vehicles and everything will be fine. There'll be a transition phase which will already offer great benefits to us individually and as to the society. And as you just said, we will decrease accidents certainly by driving safer. And as we decrease accidents, road efficiency or traffic efficiency will ultimately increase.
That's a fair point.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you for the debate. To make it simpler and to simplify the debate, why do we speak about the power combustion engine versus electricity? Nobody cares. We are speaking about driverless. Does it have any implication? I don't see why you will distinguish the electric car versus regular combustion. Second point, could we make the assumption that a normal being in the future who own a driverless car is the exception? 99% of the driverless car will be the ownership of a GM, of a Tesla, of a transportation company. Because once the car is driverless, the car doesn't ask you permission to go in the evening, do the Amazon shopping or whatsoever. So that should be also a simplification assumption. And the third question, and I stop here, I promise. Obviously, Tesla is not here, but apparently they have many, many, many miles in California, okay, on level 3, level 4. So after the buzz, do you have statistics about safety on that? Thank you.
All right, there's the powertrain question.
I'm going to take the second question, and at Cox, we absolutely believe that shared fleets, the car park is going to stay relatively the same, the number of vehicles out there, but the number that are owned by large OEMs and fleet companies is going to balloon in a big way. So I think your number 2 question, you're dead on that one, and I'll leave 1 and 3.
I'll take number 1. To run the compute platform and all the sensors on AV vehicles takes a significant amount of electrical power. So there won't be anything like an AV with just an ICE engine. The closest you'll get is some sort of strong hybrid, I believe. General Motors has said we believe the answer with AVs is EVs. That's why we're using the Bolt, again, because we're going to deploy AVs into these urban environments. You made the point earlier in your opening slides. I think the handwriting is already on the wall that cities are going to want to move away from ICE vehicles.
Yeah, and I'll take the third question. I mean, I think we are measuring safety for driver assistance systems already. It's not an easy thing to do because right now the easiest way to tell whether you have an improvement over an unassisted vehicle is to compare the crash rates for cars that have ADAS on board versus their same counterparts without ADAS on board. And unfortunately, there isn't an easy way in the crash data to identify which cars have which. Now, we've worked with some automakers to do that, and that's how we're able to know, for instance, that automatic emergency braking is reducing front-to-rear crashes by about 50%. I think on the second question, though, this is another one. The ownership question is one that remains to be seen how it sorts out, because currently you have people buying vehicles that have the potential to do things that they don't need to do every day. And the biggest example are people who are commuting in pickup trucks or large SUVs. They buy those vehicles so that they have the capability on the weekend to go to the cabin in the woods. So it's not clear that, the marketplace is going to completely wrap its head around not having a car that they know is going to be ready for them when they want to go somewhere and have to wait for it to come to them through some kind of mobility app. So I guess is that there's going to be a mix of both kinds of things.
Some people just don't want to unload their golf bags in the evening.
I don't want to take my fishing poles out of the trunk of my car. So
yeah, I agree with you.
There's going to be a mix, yeah.
There'll be a mix.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Axel Diel from Deutsche Telekom. Thanks to the panel. Just have 2 questions. One is, what are your 1 or 2 top expectations and demands towards what networks are supposed to do and to deliver to autonomous driving network demands? Second question is, we see a lot of connected car dongles proliferating in the aftermarket. So you put these things into the car, they give you Wi-Fi, they give you further services. Do you see any connection between these type of connecting cars and a fully autonomously driving car?
Maybe I'll take the first one because it's just too obvious. Coming from Germany and talking to somebody from the German telecom, so from a very private standpoint, what we would need is good coverage, at least on all the autobahn kilometers in Germany, and that's got to be another German gentleman over there.
Take it with me, thank you.
It would be just great if we would at least have 3G wherever you go in Germany. Not talking about LTE. No, but definitely, I think everybody will agree. Mercedes-Benz is one of the companies that says that for the first few years we will we'll have to be capable of handling autonomous driving without full, communication to infrastructure or other vehicles. But it's obvious the performance will become much better if we have net coverage everywhere and high-speed traffic. But we will not rely on high-speed traffic singularly.
Craig, you want to take the? I was going to say, you want to take the dongle question, because we were talking about that before we started the thing about people who have the ability to turn a car that's not in a self-driving car kind of into one through the dongle.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of those right now. I mean, Comma.ai is probably the only company I know that has one. And most of the dongles are what you're saying. They provide like another way of like tracking the car or whatever it is. And from a security perspective, they add a lot of risk in my particular field. But what you kind of mentioned is more of the connectivity and the connected car piece. And that is interesting because with Comma.ai, they are doing it that way. They have a dash cam, and they have a dongle that goes in, and they communicate to each other. And there's this optional software you can load up that doesn't come with it. It's open source, but it does convert certain vehicles into like a level 2, level 3 self-driving vehicle. And that's basically homebrew, and that's interesting because it hasn't gone through all these other things. And what are our rules on those types of stuff? But there's not a whole lot to go on right now. They have that company, and they just started selling products, I think, within the last year. So it'll be a thing, but I don't have an answer for it.
Homemade self-driving cars, whether that's good or bad.
My name is Bharat Ramani. I had a question. You have infrastructure, regulation, and technology. So which out of the three is the biggest impediment for implementation of self-driving cars? And the second question is, in terms of the emerging markets you're not talked about, but China and India, they have more need for self-driving cars today than any other place. But, and they are putting a lot more investments than US now, at least China, I know, is doing it. So do we feel that US is going to lose the race for autonomous driving?
I'll take the first one. Technology is the pacing item, at least here in the U.S. The regulatory standards are in place to let us deploy. We're not waiting for infrastructure. We're designing a standalone system, so the technology is the item.
We've just done what we call the intelligent world drive, taking a car out through 5 different continents, actually. It's just as we speak, driving up from LA to Las Vegas. And we figured out that, yes, infrastructure, of course, is something to look at, especially if you want to drive in higher automation levels throughout the world. So being in South Africa, for example, or even in Australia, if you don't have the right infrastructure, there'll be stretches of road where you can't drive autonomously. So that'll certainly be an issue as well. And who's going to win the race? I don't know. From my standpoint, it's not really a race. We will deploy our systems in every market that allows it, where the consumers or the drivers really want that technology. And of course, the infrastructure has to play along as well.
All right, I think we're out of time. We're at our hour, but. I really appreciate everyone stopping by for this, and thank you, panel, for showing up. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Well done.
David, nice to meet you.